So my name is Hamza Mansouri, and this is my first year in the College of Computer Science and Information Technology, and I'm also part of the general track. So in this workshop, we will be going over web development with HTML and CSS. Okay, so in this workshop, we will be going over what is HTML, and then we're going to see how is HTML structured, and then we're going to see what is CSS, and then we're gonna see the rules of CSS, and then we're gonna build a simple web page with HTML and CSS. To be specific, we're gonna build a simple form just to get started with web development, front-end development. Okay. So what you will need a web browser, Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, any web browser is fine. And you will also need a text editor, AuTab, Sublime Text, Visual Studio Code. Me personally, I will be using Visual Studio Code because obviously it's the best. So, okay, that's all you're gonna need. Okay, so now let's start. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's not a programming language, it's a hypertext markup language. So a lot of people, when they hear HTML, the first thing that comes in mind is programming, but it's not programming actually, because in HTML, it only tells the browser what to display on your screen. So there's no logic. There, you can't make decisions. You can't reuse code in HTML. It only displays things and elements in your screen. So it is used to create web pages and tells the browser what to display on when you open your website. So basically, they're like the main building blocks of the web. Okay, so wait. This is the structure of HTML. Okay, so the first line we have is the doc type. This basically tells the browser which version of HTML we're going to use. So we're going to use version 5 because that's the latest. Okay, and then we have two HTML tags. Okay, we have an opening tag and a closing tag. The closing tag has a /. So HTML, when you insert elements into your file, just use tags like an opening tag and then a closing tag, just like these. Okay. And then in between the HTML tags, we're going to have two other tags. The head tag, which has like the basic information like the title, or if you want to link other files like a style sheet, or if you have like a script sheet or like a JavaScript sheet, you just link them in the head, okay? And then we have the body tags, like an opening body tag and then a closing body tag. And here in between, we're gonna add all of the other elements. Okay, so I'm gonna go and open my Visual Studio Code so I can show you guys some elements. So I created a file on my desktop called index.html. So I'm gonna open it in Visual Code. And I'm also going to open it in the browser. So just give me a second to, it's not this one. Yeah, wait, it's not this one. Or just give me a second to with Visual Code. And I'm going to open it in the browser. So as you can see, this is our web page, which is obviously empty because we didn't put anything, we didn't add any elements yet. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm also going to put this one here. Okay. Okay, let's start. The first thing we're going to write is the doc type. So we're going to go and write doc type. After that, we're gonna put our HTML elements. Okay, and then we're gonna add our head. And in our head, we're gonna put the title. So here in between the title tag, we're gonna add like you see this is our web page, and the thing we're gonna put here is gonna change into here. So here it says index.html, which is the file's name. So we're gonna change it, for example, to let's say my web page. Okay, and if I save and refresh, it changes the title to my web page. Okay, so that's it for the head. We're not gonna add anything yet. We're just going over basic HTML. Okay, so then we're gonna put our body tags, and in between is where we're gonna add everything else. So the first thing I'm gonna introduce to you guys is the header. So if you want to put a header in your web page, you're gonna write H1, short for header 1, okay? And in between here, where the cursor is, we're gonna write, for example, header 1, okay? And if I save it and refresh, we have our first header. So HTML doesn't only have one header, it has 6 different kinds of headers. So I'm gonna paste all the other headers. So we have from H1 to until H6. So I made 6 of them. The first one, which is the one I made, which is header 1, and H2 for header 2, and H3 for header 3, H4 for header 4, H5 for header 5, and H6 for header 6. So if I save and refresh, we have all 6 headers right here. As you can see, as the number of the header gets larger, the header actually gets smaller. Okay. So now let's go to the next element, which is going to be, for example, you want to add a paragraph. So let's add a paragraph, okay? We're just going to put simple p tags. And in between, we're going to have like some random text for our paragraph. Okay, so this is our paragraph. Let's see. We have our paragraph right underneath our 6 headers. So that's how you add a paragraph to HTML, just as this simple. Okay, so now let's see if, for example, you want to format your paragraph. You want to have a word in bold, or you want to have a word in italic. So if you want to make a phrase or a sentence in bold, you just use B tags. So it's going to be just B. So I'm going to add B tags, and in between, I'm going to add the phrase or the sentence or the word that I want to be bold. So for example, I'm just going to write bold. And if I save and refresh, now we have bold and bold, okay? The next thing, the next formatting tag I'm going to show you guys is I for italic. So if you want to make a word italic, you just use I and just write italic, or any phrase you want to be in a fancy italic way, okay? So I'm going to save and refresh again. So now, as you can see, we have italic and we've got bold. So that's how you're going to format your paragraphs or anything, any elements you want to like format it. You just do it like that, okay? So now let's go to the next element. Is going to be say for example you want to have like a link, a hyperlink. So when you click it, it will take you to a website or a YouTube video. So if you want to add a link, you just use the A tag, okay? And then in between you're gonna write the thing that you want, or the word that you want the user to actually click on. So I'm gonna write, for example, click me. And you also have to add a href. So href is you have to, and then you have to put quotations, and in between these quotations, you're going to put the URL of the page or the link you want. So, for example, let's let me see. Let's add the university's website. Let's copy the university's URL and put it here. Okay. So if I paste it, and let me close this, refresh. Now I have a hyperlink that says click me. And if I click it will take me to the university's website because I put the university's URL here. Okay. That's it for hyperlinks. Let's go to the next element, which is going to be, so I have an idea. So HTML has an element called lists. So they have two different kinds of lists. They have an ordered list and an unordered list. So if you want to add an ordered list, you're going to go OL. So it's going to be OL. And in between, you're going to have your list item. So it's going to be LI for list item. So let's add a list item, for example, cats. And I'm going to copy it so we have a bunch of list items. Okay, if I save and refresh, now we have an ordered list with numbers like 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, that's an ordered list. So what if you don't want it to be ordered? What if you want an unordered list? So I'm gonna copy the same list that I made here. Okay, I'm gonna paste it underneath it, but I'm gonna change something. Okay, I'm gonna change the O to U, so it's UL instead of OL. So this will make it an unordered list. So now instead of numbers, we have bullet points. Okay, that's it for lists. Let's go to the next element, which is going to be images. If you want to add an image to your web page, because images make web pages fun and attractive. So IMG for image, but you also have to have you have to mention the source. So I'm gonna add a source attribute, and in between the quotations, I'm gonna add the path of the image. I already have an image saved in the same folder. It's called image.jpg. So I'm gonna choose it, and if I save and refresh, we have a cute image of a cat, because cats are awesome. But as you can see, the image is like really huge. So what if I'm gonna show you guys how to shrink it. So I'm gonna add I'm gonna change the width to, let's say, 300, and I'm also gonna change the height to 150. Okay, so that will make the image smaller, so that's better. I don't know if you see the, okay, that's better. Okay, now let's go to the next element. Let's say so most websites, they ask the user to like enter your email to subscribe or something like that. Okay, so if you want to like take things from the user, like a form, like if you want to put it in a form way, so you're gonna add a form. So to add a form, you're just gonna simply write form. Okay, and now let's do the email and then input, let the user to input their email. So let's go and add a label for, and then we're gonna give the label email in between. So this label simply wait, the label simply just writes email like that. Okay, so now let's put the input. Okay, so add input, you just write input, but you have to declare the type. Like we have different kinds of inputs. We have text, we have text area, we got a checkbox. Okay, so or even submit for button, but we don't want a button. We want text. So we're gonna put the type to text. Okay, and this keeps getting in my way. Okay, refresh. Now we have an input, so the user actually can input things. What if you want to add a placeholder? Let's add a placeholder, okay? So we're gonna add a placeholder attribute, so it's gonna be placeholder, and then we're in between the quotations, we're gonna write what we want to display here. Okay, so let's say, for example, example at gmail.com. Okay, so now it says example at gmail.com. Okay, let's do the next thing. Let's say we want to see if it's let's put a gender option like female or male. Okay, so we're gonna put a label, and we're gonna put gender in between. Okay, and now we're gonna put a label, or let's put an input. So it's gonna be only one choice. So I'm gonna change the type. The type is going to be radio. Okay, and then I'm gonna put a label for female. So if I save and refresh the page, we have the gender option, which has only female. But what if you want to make this go underneath the email, not inside it? So you just simply add a BR, which is short for break, but it doesn't need a closing tag, only an opening BR tag. So this BR tag will just make this gender option go underneath the email. So now if I refresh, it will go underneath. Okay, so now let's create one for the male, okay? So I'm gonna just copy this and change this to male. Okay, so this is like basically the main simplest elements in HTML. There are obviously more and more elements, but these are just the basics to get you guys started, okay? Let's go back to the slides. So HTML layout elements. So there are specific elements in HTML for their layout. So we have the header. If you use header tags and put things inside them, they're going to take the header part of the page. And we also have footer tags. Write things in the footer tags. You're going to end up in the footer, like the bottom part of the page. We've got nav. If you want you want to build a navigation bar. And we also got a section. So what if you want to make your website like divided into sections? You just use section, or you can use div, div. They're like similar. Section and div, they're like similar. Okay. Now we're going to see what is CSS. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So as you can see before, this is our website. As you can see, it's dull, it's dead, like there's nothing beautiful about it, it's not attractive, it doesn't have colors. Anyone who visits this website is gonna say, what is this, and just leave, because it's not attractive. So what CSS does, it makes the web page more attractive. It gives it colors, it gives it fonts. So cascading style sheets, what is it? It is the language for describing the presentation of web pages, including colors, layouts, and fonts. Okay. Now we're going to see the rules of CSS. So how are we going to write CSS? The first thing we're going to do is select the item or the element from the HTML file. So for example, here we have P. You can choose H1, H2, UL for an ordered list item, LI, any element, you're gonna choose it. And then you have to put two curly braces. And in between the curly braces, you're gonna have like a key value pair, so that you have a property, and you put the property like font size or color, or I'm gonna show you guys more properties later, but for now you have font size, and then you put a colon, and then the value of the property, and then a semicolon. Okay. So now CSS selectors. So how do you select items from CSS? You can select items by their elements, like I showed you guys before. We've got A for the link, P for paragraph, or any other elements. Okay, or you can select items by their class. So for example, let's see what our class is. So let's say, for example, let's choose, let's say this header. For example, you want to make this your main header, but you have, for example, in your website, a lot of H1s. So you want to specific this H1. So you're going to give it a class. And for example, let's say main. Okay. So if you want to select this header, you're just going to say, oh, wait, you're going to say dot, and then the name of the class. So dot main. Okay. You can also select elements by their ID. So for example, let's add an ID to something. For example, let's see this list, and let's give it an ID of cat list, for example. So if you want to select the item, and it has a specific ID, it's going to be hashtag and then the name of the item. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so here are some CSS properties. So CSS has a lot of properties, but these are just some of them, so you guys can have an idea of some of the properties. So we've got background, and we've got background color, and we've got border. A margin is for making space outside of the elements box. So okay, and padding is for inside of, to make space inside of the box. So we've got color for the font color and font size, font family. Display just helps you how to display elements in your page. Float, if you want to float something to the right, or if you want to float something to the left. Text align, width, height, and grid, and many more. Okay, so that's like the basic things. Let's go and start designing. So let's go to my desktop. Let me close this and this one. I already have a folder from before. So I made an index.html and a style.css. I already have the HTML file designed, wrote from before, but just to make it quicker. Okay, so I'm going to open them both with Visual Code. Okay. And I'm also going to open this in a browser. So this is the form that we're going to design. It obviously doesn't have any CSS yet, but it's just HTML. So I'm going to go over the doc types, the HTML file. So let's see. The first thing, we have the doc type. Okay, I already told you guys what that is. And then we've got HTML and the title, my form. And we've got a link. So this line basically links the CSS file with the HTML file, okay? So, and then we got our href, and it has the path of the CSS file. Okay, and then inside the body, we've got two divs. We've got a div class of header, so it's going to be, it's a div, and I gave it a class of header. So this one has the h1 and the paragraph in it, okay? And then we've got a div for the, and I give it an ID of form back, so it's going to be this part of the form, okay? And inside it, I've got a label for name, and a label for email, and a label for age, and we've got a label for country. Oh, and also we've got this element I forgot to tell you guys about, which is select. So we put select, and then in between the select tags, you're gonna put all the options you've got. So I put them for the countries, okay? And then I had added some questions for the college and the programming languages. So we've got I put the colleges in radio buttons, and I put the languages in check boxes. Okay, and then I've got, let's see, we've got a label for comments, and the input type is text area, and we've got a button. Okay, so that's just simply what I built here. Okay. So now let's go to the CSS. So let's choose the element that we're going to design. The first element that we're going to design is the body, which is all of this over here. So let's write our element. So it's going to be body. Okay, and then we're going to put our curly braces, and then we're going to have a property and a value. So let's say background color. Okay, so and then I got a colon, and then I'm going to put the value here and end it with a semicolon. So in CSS, there are actually 3 or maybe 4 ways to select colors. You can either type the name of the color, for example, red or white or black or whatever, or you can use RBG colors. So you just do RBG, and then you put the values of red, and then the values of green, and the values of blue. So let's, for example, put 0 here. Let's put 0 here, and let's put 200. Let's put 0 here also, and let's put 255 here. So this will make the page blue because the red value is 0, and also the green value is 0, so it's going to be blue. Or the third way to choose colors is by HTML colors. So it's going to be hash, and for example, FFF for whites and 000 for black. There are more. You can Google them and find the color that you like. But I'm going to use just simply type the name of the color. So let's say, for example, we want the background to be, let's make it gray, okay? So the background is going to be gray. Okay, now our background is gray. Now let's go to the next element. Let's see. Let's make the header. Let's choose the div part. So let's go back to my HTML file, and let's see. I gave it a class of header, so it's gonna be dot header. So let's do dot header. Okay, and then I'm gonna let's change the color, the font color, to be let's say dark red, for example. I'm just choosing random colors. You guys, you be more creative than me, okay? So that will change all the elements in the header to be dark red. So the background is gray, and the color of the elements in the header is gonna be dark red. Okay, so let's change the text align to be in the center. So text align center. And let's also change. Let's say that. Cancel. Okay, so that change the text align to center. Let's also give it a border. So let's give it dark red and make it 2px thick and make it solid. Okay, so that will just give it a border. So now we have a border. Let's also give it a margin. So margin makes it add space outside of the div or outside of the box. So we're going to make space over here. So let's make a margin of 30, for example. Okay, I'm also going to make it, I want the border to be more thicker. So I'm going to change the 2 to a much higher number, like 4. Okay. So now the border is more thicker. Let's now do the next element. For example, I want the font for the title or the header to be larger. So I'm gonna change. So this one is H1. So I'm gonna say H1. I'm gonna say font size. Let's make it 24. And let's also change the paragraph size. Let's change the font size for the paragraph to, let's say, 20. Okay. So that just makes, I want it bigger. Let's make it 40. This one, let's make it 30. Okay, this just makes the font bigger. You can also change the font family. Let's change the font family for the paragraph. So let's do font family, there are a bunch of font families. You just choose whatever you like. So I'm gonna choose randomly, say this one. So this changes the font, okay? Now let's do the next element. Let's do the form back. So this part, that we're gonna do this part. So let's go see what we called it in our HTML file. So it's a div, and we give it an ID this time, an ID of form back. So let's go, and since it's an ID, we're gonna use hash. So it's gonna be hash, and then form back. Okay. Let's give it the form back a color, a background color of, let's say, white. So we can, could be a light color. Okay, white. So this gives the div a white color, and we will also want to give it a margin. And let's also give it, like, let me show you the difference. So margin gives space from outside the box, and padding gives space from inside the box. So let's do, see, padding is from inside and margin is from outside. Okay, let's see what else to change. Let's do our labels. So our labels, I'm gonna change like the font. Let's say label, label. And let's change the font size. Let's make them larger. Let's say, for example, 20 or 18. Let's do 20. Okay, so this just changes the font. Oh, I also forgot, I want to change I want to make the corners of the form back less pointy. So I'm gonna add a border radius. So border radius, and then just put a value. So I'm gonna do 20, for example. Okay, so this just makes it less pointy. We can also add a shadow if you want to make it with a shadow. So let's add box shadow, and let's give it a color of black or gray. Let's do black, and let's give it a value of 12 from both sides. I want it from two sides. Okay, so let's save and refresh, and now we have a shadow. Okay, let's go to the next element. We already did our labels. Okay, these for the questions and the college. I put them in, let's see, I put them in H4. Okay, so I'm gonna select the item, which is gonna be H4. And let's change the font size. Let's make them 20 or 22. I want them larger than the labels. Okay, so that just makes them larger. The next thing we're gonna do, okay, we've got the comments. I want this box, the input, to be larger so we can actually write things. So let's see, I gave it an ID. So I'm gonna go get the ID of the input because we have a lot of inputs. But okay, so I gave an ID of message. So I'm gonna go hashtag message, and let's change the width to 500. Let's change the height to 100. Okay, if I save it, now the comments area is bigger. Okay, the last thing we've got is the button. So let's choose button, and let's give it a background color of let's say dark red, and a color of white. Okay, and let's change the font. Let's make the font bigger. So font size 18. Okay, and let's give it a margin. I like oval buttons more than rectangles, so I'm gonna add a border radius. let's make it 50. Okay, so now it's oval. I also want to change the cursor, so when I hover over the button, it will change to a pointer instead of, so I'm going to change the cursor, let's say cursor, to pointer, okay? So I'm going to save and refresh, and now if I hover over the button, it's a pointer, okay? So that's like, that's our form. It's not perfect. Like if you actually put some effort and be creative, you can come up with amazing things. So let's try our form, and then just add your email. This is for age. This is for your country, then your college, and then programming languages. Okay, so that's it. Let's go back to the slides. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, since you guys don't have any questions, thank you for listening.